Okay, so now that we know a little bit of the history of cancer and how it is started and that it is a genetic disorder, let's learn more about specific properties that make cancer cell a cancer cell. So these properties are described in a paper, in a review article by the names of Hallmarks of Cancer Cells. Their original article was published about 12 years ago, and it's still a classic and a very, very, very good article describing the main characteristics that make cancer cells what they are. And then they updated it with all the new knowledge and all the new studies that have come through since recently, a couple of years ago. You will find the links to those two articles in the in your module where it gives you background papers information. You'll also have a link to Hallmarks of Cancer under the module for this week as well. So cancer cells at the end of the day need to have 5 main characteristics. These are the hallmarks of cancer. The very first one is self-maintained replication. So a normal cell has a very controlled life cycle. It does not replicate its DNA, it does not divide unless there is a need for it to do so. Whether it is because the area is damaged and it must replace the damaged portion, or because it is too old to perform its functions and needs to be replaced by younger, healthier cells. However, either way, the cells will not divide unless they have gotten or they have received a signal from the body, from the cells around it, from the cells that are going to divide themselves to replicate. If there is no signal, then there will be no protein, no signal, no movement towards whatever it is that we want it to do. Cancer cells, on the other hand, have one of the key regulators of this process broken down through mutations. And because now they're mutated, they will not control the process that they're supposed to control, and thus lead to what we call dysregulated or irregulated growth of that tumor mass. They do that by doing one of 3 things. Either there is a mutation in one of the proteins that signal damaged cells for apoptosis or programmed cell death. In this case, a downregulation of apoptotic pathways lead to accumulation of cells that are not healthy or that are mutated, that contain mutations. A second way that they can do that is through lack of response to inhibitory factors. So all the time in our body, whether a cell is growing or not, the cells are surrounded by a lot of chemical signals, a lot of protein signals, and these signals act as growth inhibitors as well as growth enhancers, cells that, growth factors. So if the cell is going to be replicating, it will be doing so because there is an abundance of these growth factors signaling them to grow beyond what is normally present, and also that there is less amount of inhibitory factors. Well, in cancer cells, they either do not produce the correct inhibitory factors, not enough levels of them, or the factors that are produced do not bind to their receptors because of mutations of the receptors. Thus, there is a lack of response to these signals. And finally, most cells grow because of an outside signal that they receive on a receptor that triggers them to grow based upon these levels of growth factors. However, cancer cells can sustain their own proliferation through either damaging the body in a way that now they do not require outside signals. Their system is always on 24/7, or they could do that by producing their own growth factors that can allow them to grow and divide even when there are no external factors available. The second hallmark of cancer is that they have significantly longer survival time. Normal human cells have a finite lifespan, and they will undergo apoptosis or die of another way after that time. That is partly due to telomeres at the ends of the chromosomes that start to get shortened to the point where it can now affect the actual important DNA sequences. At this point, the cells are going to target themselves for apoptosis and die. However, cancer cells can still continue to have the effect from these cells. So the cancer cells are going to have longer survival, partly by downregulating apoptotic proteins and partly by reactivating telomerase, which is the enzyme that adds on the ends of the DNA, the chromosomes, in the form of telomeres, and thus makes the cell feel as if, it gives that artificial sense of security so that the cell does not feel unhealthy, the cell does not feel old, and will continue to divide. The third property of cancer cells that is very important is genetic instability. At the end of the day, that is the root of all evil in case of cancer cells. That is the reason why a cancer cell became a cancer cell to begin with, from a perfectly normal growing cell. Genetic instability comes from the accumulation of mutations over time that lead to various pathways and various important checkpoint proteins getting mutated, thus leading to just this combined effect from all the genetic damage. This could be due to a mutagenic agent from outside, like a chemical or chemotherapy or UV radiation, or it could also be due to a defective repair system, that there is a mutation that has happened in the repair system, so that now any mistake that the cell will make in its replication process or any mutation that it acquires cannot be fixed by the cell itself, because their repair system is messed up, their repair system is mutated as well. So that is a third very important part of cancer development. That is, like I said, the root of the disease, so that you have one mutation, it makes it more prone for a second mutation. You get a second mutation, and now there are two mutations, so the cells are even more they require even more, that we provide them with more nutrients, more signals, more space to grow, and they will just then become a vicious cycle unless they are taken out of the equation or that they are taught the correct way how to treat with cancer patients. The last two properties or hallmarks of cancer are involving its ability to over time grow aggressive enough to go and invade other surrounding tissues or systems. The first one is its ability to induce neoangiogenesis. That basically just means new blood vessel growth. New angiogenesis, blood vessel growth. Normal cells in our body are receive their nutrients, receive their oxygen from a very particular set of capillaries, blood vessels that are going throughout our body. These blood vessels are designed to nourish our present normal cells. They are not designed to nourish an external, this random growth that starts to happen in the form of cancer cells. Well, cancer cells, even though they are aberrant and they don't follow normal signals, still require both nutrition as well as oxygen in order to continue to grow and to continue to divide. And they need that, they do that by controlling the blood vessels. So they specifically secrete signals that induce blood vessel growth or blood vessels to grow towards these signals, and thus provide the tumor mass a place, space to not only receive nutrition but also to invade and metastasize, which is its last property. That cancer cells, once large enough, once aggressive enough, will invade and metastasize surrounding tissues, organs, and lymph nodes, etc.